Hey folks, I'm the Comics Kid 2099 and I'm here to review another graphic novel for you. I'm wearing the same shirt that I was in my previous video because I'm filming all of these back to back and then I'm putting them up on different days. That's why I'm wearing the same shirt, and I'm going to be doing that for a while. So in the future, if I have like 3 graphic novels that I read, then I'm going to do all 3 videos in one sitting for the most part, and then I'll be wearing the same shirt on multiple days. So that's just a little heads up for you guys, kind of giving you a peek behind the scenes what goes on here at Comics Kid 2099 headquarters. Reviewing this book, Wolverine the Brotherhood. There we go. Gonna put that up there. And this is written by Greg Rucka. And who drew this? Because I really like the artwork, and I don't remember his name. Derek Robertson. I'm going to be looking up that guy's art later. Basically, his art kind of feels like a cross between Frank Quitely and Steve Dillon. So if you don't like either of those guys, you probably would hate this art. But I like Frank Quitely's art quite a bit, and Steve Dillon I'm less okay with. I like it okay, but I don't like it as much as Frank Quitely. But this was like a combination of the two. It was taking, in my opinion, the best of both worlds and kind of blending those styles. And you know what? I'll just show you kind of a peek of what was going on here. See, Wolverine looks very animalistic here, like more so than usual. Usually, you know, he's a very hairy guy, but like here, he looks like a human being. But like here, you know, he looks almost like a gorilla or something. But it's very interesting the way this guy draws. I really enjoyed it. As for the story, it's Greg Rucka, so it's good. I've yet to read a bad Greg Rucka book before, and this, I should have expected it to be this good. I really didn't know what to expect going into this, but I did read the Wolverine Elektra the Redeemer, which was also written by Rucka, and he handled Elektra and Wolverine very nicely in that story. Here, he handles Wolverine about the same. He's basically a Ronin, a masterless samurai, and you guys probably know what Ronin is. I didn't have to explain that. That's basically how he handles Wolverine, which is not a new way to handle Wolverine. He's kind of been like that since the 80s when he got his first miniseries. That's probably the earliest that he was handled that way. Basically, this story is, it does one thing that I kind of hate about Wolverine solo stories, where as far as this story is concerned, he's never worked with the X-Men before. There is an issue at the end where he and Nightcrawler are drinking and just kind of talking about what's happened so far, but in this, he's living at an apartment somewhere, and that's how he gets involved in the story, because he meets this girl, and this girl kind of asks him to do something, and then the rest of the book is him doing that. I don't know why he's living at an apartment. In Elektra the Redeemer, he was living in a log cabin out in the middle of nowhere. In another story I read with Wolverine, it was a Wolverine-Hulk team-up story. He was living in a log cabin out in the middle of nowhere. I don't exactly understand why Wolverine does this when he has a home. Like, he literally, the X-Men live at the school. So I don't understand why he's living in an apartment here. I don't know if he was looking for trouble and then he met the girl and it's like, okay, this sounds like something I should do. I don't think so. I kind of wish that it would find a better way to get him involved in whatever story he's going to be involved in this solo run. I wish that he was living at the school and it found another way to get him into this story. And I don't know how they would do it, but I'm not a professional writer, so that's for them to figure out. That's just something that's always kind of bothered me in a lot of the solo Wolverine stuff that I've read, where it acts like he's not part of the X-Men, even though at that very moment he is part of the X-Men. It'd be one thing if he was not working with the X-Men, but he is, and he has been for quite a while. As far as the story itself, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like a Punisher story, I guess. The villains are very real-world villains. Basically, this girl that he meets, she was part of a Brotherhood. She was kidnapped by these people and used kind of as a sex slave, and then she escaped from them, and then the guy who's in charge of this cult sends some of his people after her and kills her, and they try to kill Wolverine. I don't know why. I guess because they saw him talking to her. And basically, Wolverine is trying to avenge this girl's death. And it's pretty good. I don't really have a whole lot else to say about it. I don't want to spoil too much about it. I will say this is probably not a spoiler. The bad guys do lose. But beyond that, I don't really want to say, oh, there's this one really cool thing right here that happens. There is one character in this that I did not like. She is a... See, this is a spoiler, so I'm going to go ahead and put my thumb up, and as long as my thumb is up, if you don't want to be spoiled on Wolverine, the Brotherhood, or any of the volumes of Greg Rucka's Wolverine run, because I do believe this character is a ongoing character in that run. So I'm going to put my thumb up. As long as my thumb is up, do not listen. Mute the video. So here we go. Spoilers ahead. Okay, this one girl who her husband, or not her husband, her boyfriend sells guns, and it turns out she's a federal officer, and she was a plant who is there to try and catch him in the act of selling guns illegally, and he sells guns to Wolverine. And then after they bust this guy, then she wants to go after Wolverine, basically because she has the hots for him. That's kind of called out in the story. One of the other characters says, I have no idea if you want to sleep with this guy or arrest him. And honestly, that was my problem with her too. I couldn't get a read on this woman. She wasn't really a likable character. She was just kind of after Wolverine for some reason. And she doesn't know this guy. She's only spoken to him like twice. And for some reason, she's trying to catch this guy. She's kind of the Jack McGee from the Incredible Hulk TV series. She's kind of that for this run of Wolverine. And I have no idea what happens there, because the last we see of her, she is either having a nightmare where Wolverine comes to sleep with her, or she's talking to one of the police sketch artists. And that's the last we see of her. We don't see her... I don't think we see her... I'm just going to put this down because I don't think I'm spoiling anymore. I don't think we see her in the final issue, the one where Wolverine and Nightcrawler are at the bar, which is, by the way, a really great issue. I really like that Nightcrawler is there kind of trying to be Logan's consciousness, sort of trying to give him a pep talk. I have not been... I'm not a huge fan of Nightcrawler. I think he's one of those characters. He's a nice guy. I would love to go out and hang out with Nightcrawler for an evening, but he's not an interesting character. There's basically just one or two dimensions to him, and those dimensions haven't really... There hasn't really been anything done with him in the last 30 years. Like, if you go back and read Chris Claremont's run, Claremont doesn't even do a whole lot with Nightcrawler, and basically, I'm not really sure if anything was done with him in the 90s. I would say the most important and significant thing that's happened to him in the last 30 years was being killed in Second Coming. That was a spoiler, so if you haven't read Second Coming and you wanted to, I am very sorry. That just slipped out of my mouth. I would say read this, because it's very solid. Now, it's not necessarily what I would do if I was writing Wolverine. If it was me, I would want it to be a lot more bombastic and zany. I would want there to be, like, alien invaders, and he's going to Atlantis to talk to Namor and stuff like that. I would have it much more heavily set in the Marvel Universe, and I would want it to be crazier, if that makes any sense. But it's very good for what it is. And like I said, it reminds me of The Punisher, and I don't read The Punisher, but it reminds me of that because the villains are very real world, and it's a very real world kind of thing, and then Logan is going after these bad guys, and that's something The Punisher does. It's very good, and I think, now that I think of it, Greg Rucka wrote The Punisher, so that's very fitting. But I didn't read that either. It's very good. I would recommend it, even if you're not an X-Men fan. In fact, I would say, if you're not an X-Men fan, still go and read this, because this is almost completely divorced from the X-Men. The last issue of this book, it does reference the X-Men a little. Wolverine is talking to Nightcrawler, who's an X-Man. They mention Colossus dying around the end of the 90s or the very, very early 2000s. And then they mention Kitty Pryde and the events that happened in the Extreme X-Men Mechanics miniseries. But other than that, it's very much just a solo, standalone Wolverine story. It doesn't require a whole lot of knowledge of the Marvel Universe, just a little bit. And what little you do need, probably you don't even need it. You could just read it without knowing that Colossus had died, and then when they drink to Peter's memory, you don't really need to know who Colossus is right there. But I would say get it. I don't have a whole lot of meaningful stuff to say. The only thing I really didn't like about this book was that one character, and I'm assuming more is done with her in Volume 2. I think there was only 3 volumes of Greg Rucka's run, which is, you know, a pretty decent run. That's like a year and a half, I guess. This was about 5 or 6 issues, so probably it was about a year and a half long, his run. I'm sure that character, there's more done with her later, and maybe if I read Volume 2 or 3, which I intend to, maybe I will come to like her more. But at least here, I didn't find her to be a very interesting or likable character. So that's about all I have to say. I hope that this video was helpful for you guys, and that if you were thinking about getting this, or maybe if you had never even heard of it, maybe now you will want to. You will want to go and read it. And if you do, I was glad to help you. I hope that I was able to help you. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I will talk to you guys probably tomorrow with another review. I'm planning on filming one more right after this one, so probably I will see you guys tomorrow with another review. And I'll catch you guys later. Have a good day.